I didn't think anything could top the disappointment of the drone expo, but I was wrong. The Phoenix convention was a bust, 3 days of hype and zero follow-through. My demo drone had GPS interference. The AG startup crowd was more interested in AI than tech that actually works, and the only investor who approached me wanted me to pitch his nephew's crypto project. So I came home early. No warning, no on my way text. I figured I'd surprise Sierra with the 2 weekend passes to Feral Creek Festival, something she'd been not so subtly dropping hints about for weeks. The tickets cost more than I want to admit, but she lit up when she talked about that lineup like a kid in a candy store. I even imagined her hugging me when I pulled them out of my back pocket. Dumb, I know. When I pulled into our driveway outside Santa Fe, her electric scooter was parked under the carport like always. That was my first clue something was off. If Sierra was out, the scooter was usually with her. She hated driving our dusty old Civic. Inside, it was silent. Not just regular quiet, dead quiet. No music, no clinking dishes, not even the sound of a podcast running in the background. Sierra was always listening to something. That silence made my skin crawl. I called out her name as I walked through the living room, stepping over one of Marble's chew toys. Nothing. The dog wasn't even around, which was strange in itself. He usually barked his head off the second I stepped through the door. It wasn't until I walked into the bedroom that I felt the air shift. Her dresser drawers were partly open, half empty. The makeup caddy on the bathroom counter, gone. I opened the closet, already knowing what I'd find. Her favorite coats, the canvas weekender bag we'd bought in Taos, the red flannel shirt she always stole from me, all missing. Then I saw it. A single sheet of paper on my side of the bed. My throat went dry before I even picked it up. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed, like an office memo. No emotion. No humanity. Just, met someone who gets me. He's my true partner. Don't contact me. Lawyers will. That was it. No, I'm sorry. No explanation, no forwarding address. Just a goodbye dressed up like a court notice. I sat on the edge of the bed, the paper still in my hand, trying to remember if I'd missed something. A clue. A sign. Something. But my mind was blank. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a hole in the wall like the guy in those bad divorce movies. I just sat there, heart thudding like a metronome. After a while, I picked up my phone and called Derek, my older brother. He answered on the 3rd ring. Hey, man, how was Phoenix? She's gone, I said. What? Sierra. She left. Took her stuff. Left a note. He was quiet for a beat. Shit. I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Yeah. You okay? No, I said. But I will be. We didn't talk much after that. He stayed on the line, though, letting the silence fill in for words. I just stared at the spot on the wall where Sierra's festival poster used to hang, wondering how long she'd been planning this. I guess I already knew the answer. The next morning, I was sitting across from Cliff Randall, my attorney and one of the few people I actually trusted. Cliff and I went way back. We met at a university drone showcase where he was helping judge the legal ethics portion of student patents, and somehow ended up playing pickup basketball every Thursday. After Sierra left, he was the first person I thought to call after Derek. His office still smelled like stale coffee and old printer ink. Same cracked leather chairs, same desk overflowing with manila folders. He flipped through a stack of property documents while I stared blankly at a chipped mug that read, "Don't argue with me. You'll lose." Well, he said, adjusting his glasses and leaning back. The good news? Sierra's name isn't on the property title. I blinked. What? The greenhouse facility, he clarified. You bought it outright through your LLC. She never added her name, and you never co-signed anything under community ownership. She always acted like it was ours, I muttered. I thought she'd asked me to put her name on it. I remember talking about it, at least. Cliff gave me a look. She might have talked about it, but legally? She's a stranger to that property. He pulled out a copy of the deed. My name and my LLC were the only ones listed. I sank back into the chair, relief and confusion mixing in my chest. How the hell did she miss that? Cliff smirked. She didn't miss it, Nathan. She planned it. He slid another file across the desk. I pulled some public records after your call. 2 years ago, Sierra created an LLC called Crossbeam Urban Concepts. Guess what she did with it? My stomach dropped. Tell me. She used it to buy a downtown loft on Zia Road. Swanky little spot near the new art galleries. A few months ago, she dissolved the LLC and transferred the deed to her personal name. I rubbed my forehead. Jesus. That loft's been hers for a while, man. She was planning an exit long before she walked out that door. I swallowed hard. Anything else? Cliff opened his laptop and turned the screen toward me. Yeah, your joint checking account. I saw a list of transactions, small ones at first. Target runs, gas stations, then flights, hotel stays, boutique purchases. All spaced out, almost surgical. All withdrawals made from Sierra over the course of 2 years. Total, $23,890.44. Nearly 24 grand, Cliff said. She wasn't just planning a breakup. She was building a parachute. I stared at the screen, numb. I didn't even notice. She was careful. None of the hits were big enough to flag fraud. But over time, it adds up. And legally? Cliff leaned forward. It's not pretty, but since the account was joint, she had the right to access it. Ethically? It's trash. Legally? It's survivable. But now you know what you're up against. I sat there for a long moment, trying to picture what she looked like the last time I saw her. Laughing, barefoot in our kitchen, hair in a messy bun, eating sunflower seeds while we argued about compost ratios. That was only 3 weeks ago. She knew exactly what she was doing, I said quietly. Cliff nodded. This wasn't an emotional exit. This was a calculated one. I clenched my jaw. Then I guess it's time to start calculating back. It started less than 2 days after my meeting with Cliff. At first, it was a single text from Sierra. We need to talk about the greenhouse. Urgent. I stared at it for a full minute before deleting it without replying. Then came the calls. 3 the next day. 5 the day after that. I stopped answering numbers I didn't recognize. She left voicemails, her tone shifting wildly, calm and professional one moment, frantic and tearful the next. Nathan, we can't just ignore this. Winter prep is coming. You know the heating system needs work. You're being immature. This isn't just your project. It was ours. Please. We need to have a conversation. I'm not trying to fight. I forwarded every call, every message, every voicemail to Cliff. Save it all, he told me. Don't answer. Let her talk herself into a corner. It was harder than I expected. Not because I missed her, but because of the nerve of it all. She walked out without a single word and now wanted to talk like this was some business dispute. I didn't break. Not even when she started calling at night, letting the phone ring until it went to voicemail. She never used to call after 10. But the kicker came on a Thursday evening, just before dusk. My phone rang with a familiar number I hadn't seen in over a year, Roland Mercer. Sierra's dad. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. Hey, Roland. His voice came through low and tense. Nathan, didn't expect to hear from you. Well, he said, pausing. I didn't expect to hear from Sierra either. Not like this. I leaned back in my chair, looking out at the greenhouse behind the house, golden light flickering off its polycarbonate panels. She called you. She showed up, crying. Said you were freezing her out. Refusing to split the property. Wouldn't even talk to her. And what did she leave out? There was a silence on the other end. She left a lot out, he finally said. Didn't mention the note? Didn't mention the money? Didn't mention she's not on the deed? No, I imagine she wouldn't. Roland sighed, heavy and rough. She said you were being vindictive, but something about her story didn't sit right. So I pulled the county records. I didn't say anything. She lied to all of us, didn't she? She's been planning this for a long time. Another pause. You need anything, son, you let me know. That was all he said before hanging up. I sat there for a while, listening to the quiet hum of the hydro system through the window. The property was mine. The silence was mine. And the lies? Those were all hers. It was 3 weeks later when she finally showed up in person. It was a Tuesday, mid-morning, with the sun pushing hard through the Santa Fe haze. I was deep inside the greenhouse, calibrating the nutrient pumps on a new hydro row, when I saw her reflection in the glass. I didn't need to turn around. The power-walking posture, the business casual costume, blazer, slacks, boots that weren't meant for gravel all screamed Sierra on a mission. She yanked the sliding door open with way more force than necessary. Nathan, I didn't look up. This is private property. That's funny, she snapped. Because last I checked, we both built this place. I kept checking the calibration readouts. You helped paint the wall and name the tomatoes. That doesn't make you an owner. Let's shut her up for a second. Then, we need to sell. Before winter. If you're not heating this place properly, the whole crop will. Already handled. She blinked. With what money? My money, I said, finally turning to face her. The same money you were quietly draining from our account for 2 years. She took a half step back, blinking like she'd walked into a beam of light. You're bringing that up now? I'll bring up whatever I want. Because this, I said, sweeping a hand around the greenhouse, is mine. And always has been. That's ridiculous, she said, voice trembling slightly. We talked about putting me on the title. You promised. No, I said flatly. You promised to look into it. Then you never brought it up again. And now I see why. I walked past her and grabbed the file folder I'd left on the workbench. Inside were copies of the deed, the property tax history, and her LLC's dissolution. I didn't even hand it to her, just held it open like a courtroom exhibit. You transferred your downtown loft into your name 3 months ago. You already had a plan B. I did that because I needed space to work, she said, voice rising. I didn't think you'd use that against me. I stared at her. Sierra, You walked out on me with a printed note. You left your scooter and took your perfume. And now you think you're owed half of something you never legally touched. She hesitated. Then the act changed. She softened her voice. I didn't want things to go this way. You know that. We were good once. You siphoned $24,000 out of our shared accounts and spent it on someone else's future. You don't get nostalgia rights. She stepped forward. It was a mistake, Nathan. No, I said quietly. It was a strategy. The last flicker of charm fell from her face, replaced with cold calculation. You really want to do this the hard way? I gave her a thin smile. You already did. And with that, I walked past her and slid the door shut behind me. Let her stand there in the humid silence. She was finally realizing the truth. She played the long game and lost. After Sierra's little performance in the greenhouse, I didn't wait for the next move. I got to work. Cliff called it getting ahead of the snake, which I guess was lawyer speak for putting your boots on before the flood rises. Every morning, I woke up, fed marble, made black coffee, and spent an hour going through drawers, emails, and hard drives. Receipts, tax records, credit card statements, anything with her name on it, or mine, or both. It felt like digging up fossils, except instead of dinosaur bones, I was unearthing old betrayals with CVS timestamps and boutique price tags. Turns out Sierra had been busy. There were receipts from stores I'd never heard of, imported skincare, minimalist gadgets, a Bluetooth-enabled wine decanter. Thousands of dollars over time. I found hotel confirmations under a burner email she used for spam, except one of them was local. 2 nights at a high-end place in Santa Fe. Room service. Spa charges. Just a few months before she left. That stung. Cliff came by one afternoon with a laptop and a box of files. We spread everything out across my kitchen table, me on one side, him on the other, both of us cross-referencing our way into a case that was starting to look bulletproof. He had found discrepancies on the tax returns tied to Sierra's LLC. She'd inflated her income to qualify for a higher credit line when she bought the loft, which meant the bank had approved the loan based on false information. That could blow back on her if we ever ended up in court. She made herself look richer than she was, Cliff said, tapping the screen, while bleeding you dry behind the scenes. I nodded. She was playing 2 sides. She still is. We talked strategy. I told him I didn't want to use the tax fraud stuff, yet. Not unless she tried something nuclear. I'm not looking to torture, I said. Just make sure I don't get dragged through the mud while she plays the victim. Cliff nodded slowly. That's fair. But Nathan? Don't wait too long. People like her. When the pretty version of the story starts to fall apart, they start improvising. He was right. So I documented everything. Took pictures of the greenhouse interior. Scanned the security camera backups. Saved email threads and text chains, even the weird little ones from years ago that showed how our accounts were set up. I even dug up the original purchase contract for the land, the one where she told me not to bother putting her name on it, because we're one team anyway. I printed that one on thick paper and slid it into a separate folder. Labeled it, Foundation. It was like preparing for a storm that hadn't hit yet, but whose clouds were already forming. Sierra had made her move. I was just making mine slower, quieter, and smarter. The first hint came from a neighbor, of all people. Lori, who ran the lavender farm across the road, stopped by with a bag of late-season apples. She was mid-sentence about cold storage options when she casually dropped, "Oh, and I saw Sierra's new boyfriend on that podcast with the Ecoglass Dome guys." Sounded tense. I blinked. Julian. She nodded. That's him, right? Mr. Sustainable Luxury Living? Sounded like he was about to cry on air. Something about unfair building code interference and delays outside our control. That was how it started. Over the next few days, more stories surfaced. Julian's luxury permaculture community, Hollow Earth Homes, or something equally ridiculous, had its permits pulled. Their capital was frozen due to an SEC probe involving one of the backers. And according to a post buried deep in Reddit, half their investors hadn't even seen the site in person yet. I didn't celebrate. Not exactly. But I did feel something shift, like a weight moving from my shoulders to hers. Then I checked Sierra's social media. The selfies and soft-focus lifestyle posts were still there, but the captions had changed. Gone were the inspirational quotes and artfully posed cheeseboards. Now it was all vague laments about betrayal, growth through adversity, and learning who's real when the lights go out. I scrolled until I found one with a picture of her hand resting next to a cup of tea. The caption read, "Some people build you up just to watch you fall, but we rise anyway. #healing, #new chapter, #resilience." I almost laughed. The next day, Cliff forwarded me a PDF. It was Sierra's formal divorce filing. "Here we go," he said over the phone. "She wants the Civic, half the remaining shared account, what's left of it, and monthly support." I choked. "Support?" "Yeah," he said, dry as ever. "She listed you as primary income provider and claimed she gave up her business ambitions to support your greenhouse dreams." I stared at the ceiling. She had a secret loft and 2 Etsy shops. I know. Doesn't stop her from trying. He emailed over the document with her claims highlighted. One paragraph included phrases like unpaid domestic labor, emotional partnership, and my personal favorite, invaluable contributions to long-term property value. Cliff laughed. She's quoting from a California case. We're in New Mexico. It doesn't even apply. Doesn't matter, I said. It's a performance. Exactly. He paused. You want a counterclaim? Nope. No. I smiled. I want to let her sink with her own ship. Quietly. And that's what I did. I didn't respond. Cliff filed a formal denial and attached all our supporting documents. The deed, the transaction history, the note she left me. It was an airtight response. No public drama. No accusations. Just paper. A week later, Cliff texted me a screenshot of a reply from Sierra's lawyer. It was one line. Client is willing to revise requests in light of documentation. Translation? She knew she was cornered, and all I had to do was let reality do the work. It was almost a month later when I saw her again. I was in town picking up parts for the irrigation controller when I ran into her at the grocery store. Of all places. I turned the corner by the bread aisle, and there she was, holding a discounted loaf of Ezekiel sprouted grain like it was about to bite her. Her eyes locked with mine. She looked thinner, pale, makeup doing too much work on a tired face. She opened her mouth, then shut it, then tried again. Nathan, can we talk? I stared at her. Talk. Please, she said, quietly. Just a few minutes. In your truck. I should have walked away. But something in her voice wasn't the Sierra I remembered. Not the one who left me a printed breakup note and ran off with some sun-drenched architect. This voice sounded cracked, like a windshield hit just wrong. Fine, I said. 5 minutes. We sat in the truck, parked under a dusty tree at the far end of the lot. She held her bag in her lap like a shield. She didn't start right away. Just sat there picking at her cuticle, breathing like someone trying not to fall apart. Then she broke. It all fell apart, Nathan. I didn't say anything. Julian's project. It's gone. The funding, the land, permits pulled, investors backing out. I didn't even know about half of it until the lawyers showed up. Still, I said nothing. I just let her keep talking. He's gone too. Disappeared 2 weeks ago. Just left a note and vanished. I sold the bracelet you got me for our 3rd anniversary just to cover rent this month. That made me flinch. Not because of the bracelet, but because I remembered how happy she looked when I gave it to her. She kept going. I got a letter from the IRS. Something about my filings from the loft. Apparently I claimed income one didn't actually make. They're threatening penalties. That's tax fraud, I said flatly. I know. Her voice cracked. I didn't know it would snowball like this. Then she looked at me, eyes glassy and wet. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I thought I was building a better life. I really believed it. I nodded slowly. And now, I need help, she whispered. Just for a little while. I have nowhere else to go. I could stay in the guest house. Just till I find work again. Please. I looked out the windshield. The sky was heavy and gray, like it wanted to storm, but couldn't quite commit. Then I reached into the glove box and pulled out a file. Thick. Tabbed. Labeled. I handed it to her. What's this? Everything, I said. Bank statements. The 24 grand you took. Hotel receipts. Screenshots of your tax filings. Copies of your LLC transfers. She didn't open it. Just stared down at the cover like it was ticking. You kept all this. I documented everything, I said. Because I knew, eventually, you'd try to come back and rewrite the story. Her face collapsed. Not a breakdown. Not full-on sobs. Just the look of someone realizing the rope they burn now leads nowhere. I went on, voice calm. If you come after the property, I'll file. If you try to spin this into something it's not, I'll go public. If you drag this through court, I'll let your investors, your parents, and the IRS see everything in that folder. Silence. I'm not here to hurt you, I added. But I won't let you hurt me again. Her voice was barely a whisper. You really wouldn't help me? No, Sierra, I said. Not this time. She opened the door, stepped out, and stood there for a second like she might say something else. But she didn't. She just closed the door gently and walked away. And I let her. The final paperwork came through on a Thursday afternoon. Cliff emailed it with the subject line, "It's done. No spousal support. No property claims. No appeals. Just a clean, uncontested signature at the bottom of a PDF that closed the door on 6 years of marriage with a single click." I stared at the document for a while before closing my laptop. Not out of sadness. More like disbelief that it was finally over. That she couldn't reach in anymore, twist things around, or act like she still had a voice in my story. I walked outside and stood in the dirt yard for a few minutes. The breeze smelled like sage and sawdust. Marble padded up beside me and leaned into my leg the way he always did when he sensed something had shifted. I rubbed behind his ears and said, "We're free, bud." Then we got to work. I started with the house. The office Sierra used to call her creative space. All pastel throw rugs and mood boards got cleared out in one afternoon. I turned it into a hydroponics lab. PVC piping, LED grow lights, rows of nutrient trays for winter lettuce and dwarf tomatoes. It smelled like water and possibility. I found that I liked hearing the quiet hum of growth again. The bedroom walls were next. I repainted them a muted gray blue. Calm, clean, nothing floral. I donated the throw pillows she'd obsessed over. Too many textures, anyway. In the evenings, I let Marble roam off-leash around the greenhouse perimeter. He'd sprint, roll in the dirt, then come back panting and proud like he'd just defended our borders from invisible threats. For the first time in a long while, I didn't have to worry about keeping everything pristine for show. Weekends changed, too. I joined a local robotics co-op, one of those grassroots mentorship programs at the high school. Every Saturday, I helped a team of awkward, brilliant kids solder sensors onto drone frames and test flight logic in a parking lot. They reminded me of younger me, obsessed with getting something to fly straight, even if the world around them didn't. It didn't fix everything, but it helped. Made things feel lighter. Sometimes Roland stopped by with old gadgets from his garage. One day, it was a broken, oscillating fan from the 90s. Another time it was a camcorder he swore still had footage of Sierra's third-grade spelling bee. We didn't talk about her. He never brought her up again, and I didn't ask. But we worked side by side, stripping wires, tightening screws. It felt like building something with someone who understood loss without needing to say it out loud. Even the quiet started feeling like mine again. I still kept the folder, every receipt, every document, every printout. Tucked it into the back of the filing cabinet under Archive. Not out of spite, just as proof of what I endured and what I chose not to become. That was enough. The life I had now wasn't flashy, but it was steady. It was real. And most importantly, it was mine.